Hello, everybody. It's 9:16 p.m. Central Time on June 9th, 2025. It's Monday here in the USA, and I'm doing a update, which I am recording and will upload to YouTube when I'm done here live on Twitch. It's been a while, guys. And if you're on YouTube, very long story as to what happened. Don't want to go into that now. But I am back on YouTube now, and I am live on Twitch still and have been for the last few months, which I have not been uploading to YouTube. That all being said, we're here to do seismic updates, not to do updates on me, but we are doing okay, the Duchess and I, and the cats. Let's go ahead and turn on the display capture so you can see what I see ever so slightly better, and I am a little rusty at this. Again, it's been a few months since I've recorded a live update, but now is an appropriate time for me to get on. We have multiple 6.0 plus level activity taking place in the past few days, last day and a half, on the antipodes on the opposite sides of the planet from each other. One south of Australia here, 6.2, 6.0, depending on who you go with, but multiple noteworthy earthquakes out there in the middle of nowhere on the edge of the plate boundary, which is all the way down here on this red line south of Australia. That being said, 6.0 there, if we go across the plate onto the other side of the planet, go all the way over here, we're right here at the Venezuela Colombia border region, and this is a significant sized earthquake there. We haven't seen anything like this in many months in this location, especially at Central America going into South America. Pretty significant 6.3 there, 6.3 to 6.4. Now let's go back 2 days and you'll see the rest of the activity, or 3 days. You'll see we have other 6.0 level activity that was downgraded to 5.9. That's a deep earthquake down below the Fiji Tonga area. And whenever we see deep earthquakes like this, we have to look for shallower, larger earthquakes. And shallow, larger, I mean by up to a magnitude larger. We look next to the deep earthquakes when they happen. If we see a deep 5.9 like this, we then have to watch next to the deep quake for up to a 6.9. So let's pinpoint where the spot is. It's right here where the deep earthquake is. Think of this down below the plates, down below this red line, down below this fracture in the Indo-Australian plate between the South Pacific and Indo-Australian. So something's coming up there, and next to it, most likely to the west, that puts New Caledonia, Vanuatu going over to the west, northwest, up into the eastern part of the Solomon Sea. Right in here, we would watch for up to 7.0 level activity to take place. That's just the start of this because we have multiple noteworthy earthquakes taking place this past week. Again, over the past, look, 6.4 striking off the coast of Chile at the start of the week, or well, end of last week. 5.5s around the board, and they're equidistantly spaced. Check out the spacing on this, going from 6.4 to 6.4 here in South America, then 5.5, 5.4 to 5.5, back to another 6, then mid-range fives all the way across into the West Pacific. Here, let's look at the actual fives and greater. There we go. Fives and greater really shows it. This stepping stone path of earthquakes all the way around even from Mexico at the Texas border, going all the way back down and around over to the West Pacific. And this is a lot of movement for 1 week's time. It's an increase from where we were. And this all ties in the sun. We had the big solar storm plus the strong solar wind. Both have an earthquake effect, but two different kinds. So we have, when the strong solar wind hits Earth, we tend to see shallow, large earthquakes suddenly take place during the time of the strong solar wind, buffeting Earth's magnetic field, so to speak. Then there's charged particle storms that get emitted from the sun, whether it's a coronal mass ejection or a solar flare that emits a charged particle storm with it. And that gets taken on the solar wind and brought to Earth, and we see deep earthquakes. We see a bunch of deep earthquakes take place, and then that results in shallow, large earthquakes several days later. The whole process takes about a week from the time where the solar storm happens to where the charged particles or strong solar wind or both hit Earth, and that then a couple days later, we see a big, deep earthquake increase, followed then by shallower, larger earthquakes. That's where we are now with the shallower, larger earthquakes. We started to see a series of deep earthquakes take place. You see them raised high off the planet here. Looks like a pincushion in the West Pacific. Whenever you see that, if you use Earthquake 3D, You kind of know to watch then for shallower, larger earthquakes above these, the ones that are raised high off the planet. Up at the surface, hugging the planet, you'll see shallower, larger earthquakes pop off in between them and around the plate boundary of whatever plate is having the deep quakes. That being said, Indo-Australian plate is the one that's really moving, and it's going all the way down south of Australia, all the way out east to Point Nemo. This is the spot here, out here in the South Pacific. And like I said, going back over to South America, which has really started to move. And we went many months without seeing South America move much at all. Now, the east side of South America, or in the middle of the Atlantic, we have 4.7 out here next to our letter X at the tip of the arrow, and another 4.7. And this is everything 0.0 and greater from the USGS. Last 2 days, we're spreading equally on both sides around South America. And another way you could look at it is we'll go look at South America this way, and we'll turn it on its side. And what's going on here is the seismic wave is coming across the Pacific this way towards South America. When it gets to the plate boundary, it goes this way and this way. It tries to break around South, like a big rock and a big wave hitting on the shores of a sea that this bends around. And you can see that it's almost like two claws going around the outside edge of South America, and those are actually stems or extensions off the plates. And this drops 20,000 feet here along the edge of these volcanoes at South Sandwich Islands. This goes 20 to 20,000, 22,000 feet deep there. And then up here, same thing in the Caribbean, and it's almost the same shape and the same depth. So it's flowing like molasses around South America. But what's flowing around South America like molasses? Well, this giant seismic wave is going across the Pacific, or I'm sorry, across the South Pacific in particular, the North Pacific somewhat, but mainly to the south, and it breaks around South America. Starts over in the West Pacific, though, and the wave I'm talking about is a deep seismoelectric yet to name it, but QLF, a quake low frequency, is spreading out and spreading to think of it like a very low frequency going around these red lines. And the red lines are guiding the wave like a wave guide in a microwave would. Only the wave we're talking about is an extremely large, very low frequency wave. Let's go up across the West Pacific because we had the same sized earthquakes break out on both sides, Philippines and the Izu Ridge. Let's go back 2 days. Boom, boom. Two of the same size quakes, 5.2 and 5.3, or 5.3 and 5.2, depending on which one, or 5.4 and 5.1. Mid-range fives to low-end fives striking on both sides of this. Over here, see the red lines? Same sized earthquakes on both sides of it as the wave is going around it and focusing in on Tokyo next, which is the next spot to get hit. And it hasn't been hit yet, but I would look for the next magnitude up. So that puts mid-range 6.5 level activity due at Tokyo, off the coast of Tokyo, most likely here. This is east of Tokyo on the plate boundary. Let's go take a look. It's like a letter H shape here. The wave is coming up on one side and on the other. It's going to refocus here, and that's where the new break's going to be between the previous sets of earthquakes. Can you see where, like, find a triangulated point between these three sets of earthquakes on this red line? You got a quake over here, quake over here, quake up here. Obviously, it's going to be somewhere in between all three, or not obviously to people who don't know what I'm talking about, but we look for the standing wave to come up between the two previous waves. And if we have three waves, we have to look at a triangulated point instead of just a halfway point between them. Up to the north is the same thing. So it looks like Japan's going to get hit twice, but it'll probably be a magnitude, I would think, a magnitude less up to the north. So that would be a mid-range 5 striking on the north side of Hokkaido. If not, then it would be flip-flopped, and we'd get a mid-range 6 striking at Hokkaido and a mid-range 5 striking down at Tokyo. Either or, they're a few hundred miles apart. You see it's a big open area right now that should be filled in, and the rest of the areas obviously are moving. As we go over to the west, we also have a huge open silent zone across Sumatra, Indonesia, and I don't like seeing silent zones across seismically prone areas. And let's go back 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. We'll go back 6 days, and there's no seismic activity 4.0 or greater reported out of Sumatra, Indonesia, while all the areas on all sides of it, 4.9 up here, 5.0 over here, another 4.9 basically, another 4.9 down here. 3 sets of 4.9s all the way around it. Let's go show you what I'm talking about. All the way around what? 4.9, 4.9, 4.9, 4.9. But we would look in the middle here on the plate boundary between our current sets of earthquakes for a new break to take place that's up to a magnitude larger. So that would be up to 5.96. Let's just say a new 6. First one in how many weeks or months? It's been months since Sumatra's had any large earthquakes. It's just bizarre. But the whole plate boundary, all the way around it, going up into the Gulf of Aden, all the way over here, see 4.9. You see over here, 4.8 to 4.9. You see up here, 4.9 to 5.0. You see down here, 5.0. It's all the same sized earthquakes going around this, the outside edge of the Indo-Australian plate. And I just got done talking about all the way over here, and all the way down south. The only spot missing is the Indian Ocean itself to be filled in with a significant earthquake for this whole thing to have moved. To see where our X is down here, and for the whole thing to have shifted in 1 week's time, which is and all on the same magnitude. How could we phrase this? Think of how much energy it would take to displace the whole Indo-Australian plate on a 5.0 to 6.0 basis in 1 week's time. Something's coming up from below here, obviously, and that's all the deep quakes, and that then spreads out. Following the red lines, spreads out following up to the west over to Europe, and up to the north to Japan, and over to the east to South America. We'll get to the USA in a second because the wave goes up, around, and over into the USA last. It's a path of least resistance, so it's coming up from over here where all the deep quakes are, and it's trying to go to the north, to the west, into the east. And then to get to the United States, we go to the north and up and around like a wave guide in a microwave, guiding a microwave to your food. Instead, this is a very low frequency wave being guided by the red lines, the plate boundaries here, up, over, and around to the United States. And we tend to get hit last as the plates start to shift. So it goes over to the west. And that's where we are now. Is it spread out this far, 4.9, 4.9, 4.9, 5.0, 5.0, 5.0. And look what Europe got. The combination of all of them, 5.3. If you take all those 4.9s or 5s, all 4 of them, and add them together, it equals 5.3 to 5.4. And why does that matter? Because the tally total that spreads across a plate boundary goes to the next plate and transfers into it, and then tries to go across and out again. And what do we get? We got the same sized earthquake all the way up here at our letter X. X marks the spot, Gackle Ridge, North Pole, Arctic Circle, I should say. Right off the actual North Pole is, the physical North Pole is right here at the center of the screen spinning. But the 5.1 right off of it, down below on the plate boundary, it's all the same sized earthquakes going across with think of this like a ship parting a sea, and at the front of the bow of the ship is where the wave is breaking the most. That's where we are here. So out in Europe, look where all the red lines go. Let's talk about it one more time. Seismic wave coming from below Indo-Australian plate, spreading up to the north, over to the east, and over to the west. As it goes over to the west, it gets focused in here on where the plate boundaries come across. That goes through Saudi Arabia, that goes up through Iran, of course, and then it focuses on the W-shaped bend in the plate here on the north side of Africa, or south side of Europe. That's Greece and Turkey. So let's go take a look. Right there in Greece, in the middle of the Aegean Sea, right on our arrow, 5.3. The focus point for all the energy so far is focused in here. Next step is for it to go out to the North Pole, which it just did in the last day. But next step means it's spread all the way to our letter X, going back and tracing a stepping stone path all the way back to the West Pacific now. We're going to look at the 5.0s and greater, or 4.9, because USGS downgrades a lot of the 5s to be 4.9s. I'm not exaggerating. There we go. You should be able to see that we're pretty much dealing with a equidistant spacing of 4.9s all the way back to the West Pacific, which is our focus point for our biggest set of earthquakes in the past few days. And it's going over to the east as well, and it's doing the same thing. We can look at the 4s and greater, and all that does is fill in the halfway points between the 5s. We're talking a standing wave here. Okay, now let's talk about Europe, what we're going to look for in Europe and Asia. So if we're looking for 6s to go over to Japan, I'm going to look for 5.9s, or mid-range to upper 5s, to spread across Asia. There's 2 spots to watch. One hasn't been hit in a while. That's North India, South Nepal. Let me show you the spot on the plate boundary all the way back over here. I would expect if Japan's going to be getting 6.5, that the wave's going to also go to the west. It's going to drop off that 6 that I talked about watching at Sumatra for. Then we should see it take one step down to 5.9, strike at the halfway point between these two sets of earthquakes. If we go around the bend of the plate, the halfway point brings us in right here at North India into Nepal. So new 5.9 there. That's a big deal because of the structures. And if it strikes shallow, then it'll cause damage. If it strikes somewhat deeper, 20, 30 kilometers deep, then it might not cause as much damage. Over to the west, we would watch for the same sized earthquake going over to Iran. So it would be two sets of 5.9s. One, or that's not Iran, I'm sorry, that is Pakistan, right at the Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan border where the two sets of arrows come together on the south side. Technically, that's Pakistan, right? Let me get my countries. That is. So on the southeast side, really, it's the number 7 shaped bend of the Carlsberg Ridge where we would watch. But I have to actually warn everybody in this area when we talk about 5.9. Again, strikes on land shallow. We've got a problem. Strikes out in the ocean at the number 7 shaped bend in the plate. All good. It will just be a statistic. But two of the same sized earthquakes are going to be spreading across there, most likely. Again, we're taking the next step up. All we're really doing here is we're going from 4.9s up to 5.9s. And it's obvious that we're getting ready to take the next step up. We just took the next step up in the West Pacific. Make that full screen again. Okay, so over in Europe, what do we watch for? Well, we have to watch two spots, and this is, I don't normally have to issue warnings for them, so one is the obvious, is Greece going over to West Greece, Western Greece. That's the Ionian Range or Ionia. That's out there in the ocean going on to land right here at West Central Greece. And you would be in the upper 5 level as well. I would think not as big as Iran, but if I'm even half magnitude off, we'd be going up into the 6.0 level. So it's just flirting with sixes going across, maybe even bigger, but I try to get it within a magnitude. Now, the spot to watch is where all the rings are overlapping on the west side of Greece. Let me show you what's there on the USGS map. See this? It looks like a letter J going up into Italy, and then we have what looks like a letter W going across. This is, again, the plate boundary for Africa going into Europe. And right where the two meet, right here, is the spot I'm talking about. Western Greece, where it says Patras. And let me see if I can find the actual, yeah, Ioannina. Probably butchering the way that's pronounced. You probably don't say Io, right? Like Ioannina. Okay, whatever. You see it right here. And it's the Ionian Sea, so come on. Where the J meets the W, that's where we watch. Then the second spot to watch is up to the east by northeast in Romania. So I would watch Romania for a 4.9 up to 5.0, which is pretty rare for the location. It only happens a few times per year at the most. And we would watch next to the volcanic segment there, which is called, let's get the name of it. Well, first of all, let me show you what I'm talking about with all the borders and labels turned off. Here's Europe, and it looks like a backwards S shape here on Google Earth. These are the mountains, but this is also the interior edge of the European craton. And so we watch right in here in Romania, and we'll turn back on our borders and labels. There we go. And let's also turn on all the volcanoes. So South Harghita Mountains in eastern Romania, somewhere here on the edge of the bend of the plate. And the reason we're going to look there is down to the south, we're shifting, and the wave is trying to escape out. Some of it has. It's gone all the way up to the North Pole and struck at the Gackle Ridge next to our letter X destination point. But Iceland, Azores, Italy, what's going on? Well, the wave is clearly stuck here in central Greece, and much of it has still remained there. Only 1/5's worth of energy has escaped out. That leaves 2/5's worth of energy. Remember, we're dealing with, think of this like 3/5's. If this was a 5.5, think of it like 5/5's. If it was a 5.6, think of it like 6/5's. Think of it that way. So this is like 3/5's here, 5.3. And one of them has escaped out, or 1.1 of them has escaped out. That still leaves 2 fives worth of energy down here in Europe, bouncing around, stuck in the plate boundary system that I've showed you here 1,000 times now in this update. Stuck in here, we have a wave. Part of it has escaped out and around, out to our plate boundary destination point next to the supervolcano at the North Pole. In case you didn't know, that's an actual supervolcano up here at the North Pole that it's gone out next to. Here it is. Here's the supervolcano itself, the Gackle supervolcano, and then the East Gackle Ridge is over to the west, but they've now classified this as the supervolcano that I proposed that it was back when I found it 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I found this. Earthquake struck below it. I went and looked at it. I said, whoa, that's a depression. That's a crater. What the heck? This is undocumented. Made a video on it. I was mocked and ridiculed around the world by professionals who said that if it was a supervolcano, that they would know about it and that blah, blah, blah. Well, it turned out that nobody knew about it. The Russians had misidentified this as a ridge only, and they went back in and studied it, and they declared it a supervolcano 3 years ago. And it's the biggest on the planet, bigger than Tamu Massif. That being said, when you see something geophysically that's weird, say something and stick to your guns. People made fun of me over it. They're like, ha, 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 ha. Well, I named it Mount Dutch. They're calling it the Gackle supervolcano. Okay. No ego. Just saying, when you discover it, you plant your flag on it, you put your name on it, don't you? Isn't that what you... Okay. Let's go into the United States. Let's go talk about what happened here. Boy, the last few days, things really started to get spicy here in the U.S. Over on the West Coast, multiple fours. Down in Texas, right at the Mexico border. Well, down in Mexico, right at the Texas border. 5.0 level activity. Very rare. When you see what's there, when you see what's at both locations, where both sets of where the 4.7 to 5.0 earthquake struck up in Idaho, and a 4.9 to 5.0 striking down at the Texas border with Mexico. When you see what's at both locations, it will make much more sense. And when you see where the larger earthquakes of the week also struck, it'll make a lot of sense. These all connected across the edge of the North American craton. Let's get that on the screen really quick. Just remember this overall. Look at the center part of it, the brownish rusty color, and where the arrows point down through Texas and up the East Coast. And remember, down through Texas, how it makes that bend right through West Texas and right along the Mexico border. And then look at the purple part and where that goes through Nevada and Idaho. And this matters because the purple part also goes down through Texas or through the same area, right? Now, this is the way the seismic wave flows. So we get a 5 or a near 5 up to the northwest, and we also get a 5 within the same few days time period down in Mexico. What's the relation between them? Well, down in Mexico, I think we're going to have to look this one up first. Ocampo, Mexico. And I went and looked this up with my viewers live on Twitch just a day and a half ago when the earthquake, 2 days ago, when the earthquake struck. So I already know what's there, but I had to do some digging to find it because it's not marked directly from the USGS. So when you zoom in on the location, you see sand dunes. Okay, that's somewhat normal for Mexico down here. But if you look out, you're going to see a basin that's somewhat circular shaped. And if you back it out further, you're going to see this, the Camargo Volcanic Field. Now, let me read this to you. The Camargo Volcanic Field is located in the northern Bolson de Mapimi Graben in north-central Mexico, about 150 kilometers southwest of Big Bend National Park in Texas. More than 300 volcanic vents, mostly cinder cones and lava cones, are located in a broad 2,500 square kilometer plateau that extends 60 kilometers east and west. So 60 kilometers puts us right over here within a few miles of the earthquake itself, right on the edge of here. And all of these are old volcanoes. This one is the furthest. It's just cinders left on the ground. Here, hold on, let me zoom in. It's just cinder cores left on the ground there, but then they get more and more pronounced as we go over to the west, and you can actually see still the cones left in the volcanoes themselves, the spatter cones. We'll just kind of get a zoom in on that. Okay. And then they get numbered even more and more and more. And some are very recent. Well, I would say recent, a few thousand years old. And some are much more ancient. And it just these are all volcanoes here. All these little round patches. There, 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 there. Okay, every single one of these is a volcano. All right. So you get the idea. This is huge, right? And then it goes over to the east, and right over here is where it putters out. We get right next to the earthquake, or right down here. Now, just to the north is another giant volcanic field in Texas. Here's the border with Mexico and Texas. This is Big Bend, Texas. And these are all ancient volcanoes as well, from a, I think, much more ancient volcanic field. But it goes down into Mexico again, and we have more ancient volcanoes. So let's back it out. Oh, yeah. And some very impressive old ancient calderas. That's on the Mexico side of the border and on the Texas side of the border. I'm just taking the time to show this to you because an earthquake down here is very rare. And 5.0, well, another rare earthquake that only happens a few times a year at the most is up here in Idaho, 4.7. Let's go take a look. Or wait, Geophone Potsdam says 4.7. What does the USGS say? Hold on. USGS 4.3? Okay, well, we'll go with the USGS. Geophone Potsdam is Europe. And let's go show you what's there. So we go from a volcanic field down in Mexico up along the edge of the craton. You remember I mentioned that and told you to remember it, up in Idaho. So now, up here in Idaho, we're in the Chalice Reserve, right in the middle. See where it says Chalice? This is the deepest part of the magma chamber for Yellowstone National Park, which is here at the surface over here at Wyoming's border with Idaho. But the magma chamber reaches down by 30 or more kilometers, and the feeder for it stretches over and below Idaho and comes from somewhere very far down below the plate or in the plate over here. Now, bordering that are all these volcanoes on the edge of the feeder. And then up above it, as we get closer to the surface, you have actual surface fissure fractures and huge volcanic fields like this one, for instance. This is Craters of the Moon National Park. And Hell's Half Butte, or Hell's Half Acre, right here. These are lava flows. And we get back to Yellowstone. So there's a trail of volcanoes at the surface along the edge of where the feeder is for Yellowstone going up to the surface. But on the edge of it here is the Chalice Reserve. And this matters because we have to open this up one more time, the Craton diagram. Look up in Idaho, central Idaho, where the purple meets the green, where the accretionary belt or coastal plain meets the deformed edge of the Craton, which then goes over to the more stable portion of the Craton to the east, over through Yellowstone itself. Now you got to remember this because I'm going to turn that off and we're going to go look at the earthquakes that are smaller in the United States. And let's turn off all the numbers. Just remember the bigger the rings are the bigger the earthquakes going up to 4.0. And we will turn it down just so you can see locations of the quakes a little bit better. And what you're going to see is following that line on the Craton going down through Idaho, pointing right into Yellowstone National Park itself, all the small earthquakes. Now look where the big earthquake is. See our red arrow? Let's trace that back. Look where it goes to. It goes back to Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier. And that's where our other significant sized earthquake struck this past week, a whole cluster of them looking like a arrow itself pointing in across Washington and Oregon, pointing in over to the east. This is the last 7 days worth of earthquakes now, or here's the last 7 days. So you can see huge cluster coming in from the northwest. Let's go back to the USGS map now and look at the USGS plate boundary map. Coming in from Washington and Oregon up here and going over through Idaho into Yellowstone and then going down to Texas. And that's what has happened over the past several days. I think we're going to take the next step up. Looks like we're going to take the next step up. When I say the next step up, I mean it. So it looks like we're going to be going up into the mid-range 5 to 6.0 level activity. But the locations, this really matters. I'm going to look for a new 6 or upper 5 to strike Southern California. Let me explain why. We've already had a 5 down here. I already showed it to you at the volcanic field at the Mexico-Texas border. We already had a 5 or 4 point whatever plus swarm up here in Idaho. So the western edge of the Craton, let's get the Craton diagram back on. The green part is putting pressure in, or the wave is going into the purple part. And it's already broken at Idaho, and it's already broken down at Texas. So look where else it goes at the pinnacle points. Well, look where it goes. It goes right out into Southern California at the Mojave east of LA. But I'm trying to forecast down to 200 miles. So at the purple part, meaning the green part, down in South California, there's two pinnacle points that go into California. One at Central California along the Nevada border, and then again right down in Southern California along the Imperial and San Andreas Fault. So we're going to watch there. And we're going to watch for something bigger than what struck at Mexico or Idaho. And the reason we're going to watch for something bigger than what struck at Idaho or Texas is the wave is trapped in here. Look over in the East Coast. Hush, hush. New Madrid, East Coast. Hush, hush. Meanwhile, break, break. So the wave is caught in the western edge of the craton. And the only other spot it has to go now, it looks like Southern California. So the spot I'm going to watch is east of LA, north of San Diego. That puts us to 29 Palms. That puts us southeast of LA or east of LA. But if a 5.9 or 5.5 to 5.9 strikes even, I'm trying to get it to 200 miles. Let's go measure 200 miles from where I'm looking just to show how many people are affected by this particular warning, which I don't normally have to issue for Southern California. But if we're going to watch east of LA and northeast of San Diego, that will put us out here, like I said, Palm Springs, 29 Palms, somewhere right in here. And I'm trying to get it to 200 miles. Oh, wait, we need to measure in miles. Hold on. There we go. So there's 100 miles. Puts us into the coast, like downtown central LA is exactly 100 miles away from where I'm warning. Same for San Diego. It's 99 to 100 miles from San Diego. So I'm trying to get it to 200 miles. That means we have to warn everybody in LA, San Diego, all the way to Salton Buttes and out the other direction, 100 miles. And where does that go? That goes out into basically to the border of California and Nevada and as far north as Searles Valley. So basically all of Southern California needs to be warned for this, 5.5 to 5.9 in the next few days. When I say few days, I mean it. So this has already happened in the past day and a half, and we only have a little bit more time to go on this. So I'd say, 5 days probably is what we would watch for that from this point on. Southern Colorado, I did issue a warning for you 2 days ago when I was live on my stream, but you had to be live on my stream to even hear me talk about it. I did not record it. Now a 3 has struck, but this is really technically on the New Mexico side of the border. Let's just go quickly look this up at Raton, New Mexico, and take a gander and see what's there. I know in southern Colorado there's a lot of oil and gas drilling, as well as in north New Mexico. So it will help to search. Come along with me on a voyage of discovery, and let's see if there's any drill points nearby. There might not be. Mother Nature might have taken care of this, and humans might not be involved with this at all. Well, first of all, I don't see any mass drill points. They normally stand out very large if there are drill points. But you know what drew my eye was all of this right next to the earthquake. Now, check it out. Look where we are. Most people don't know about this. Here's Oklahoma right here. This is the border of Oklahoma. Here's Kansas. To the south, obviously, we've got Texas. And to the west, we have New Mexico. And on the north side, we have Colorado. Now, up here in Colorado, starting right here, going down into New Mexico, these are all volcanoes. Some of them are being mined, hold on, like this one, to get their cinder, the red cinder. Others have been made into parks. Let me see if I can find one that's a really developed. Yeah, here's Horseshoe Crater Volcano. And this is right at the Oklahoma border. And we go across this way, and they're mesas now. They've been weathered over time, but you can see the lava flow. I mean, you can literally see where it's been mesaed out with wind, but Black Mesa Volcanic Butte is what that is. Here's Carrizo Mountain Volcanic Butte. There's the tuftage at the top. the leftover tuftage, which they built a radio antenna on top of. There's the lava flow. This happened when this was underwater mainly. We see these same formations out in California, out in the desert. You want to see one? Why not? Let's just go take a quick look. Right out here. Here's one that's not that weathered. It's about 300 feet high, Mud Springs Volcanic Butte, but there's the lava flow off of it. That over in Oklahoma got weathered with wind, or I'm sorry, in southern Colorado at the Oklahoma border, and you get something like this. But nonetheless, it's an ancient volcanic field, and it goes right over to where our earthquake is. And some of these are very pronounced. Look at that one. Eagle Tail Mountain Volcano. Oh, wow, another radio transmitter on top of each one. Of course they're going to. It's way high above plains that don't normally have large peaks in them. Here's the Raton Clayton Volcanic Field place mark for the whole area. Let me read it to you. Or the Raton. The Raton Clayton Volcanic Field is a large Miocene quaternary field stretching from near Trinidad, Colorado to Clayton, New Mexico. The main pulse of volcanism took place between 4 and 1.8 million years ago. Their time scale, guys. I don't know if I trust their time scale or not. You guys know about the Miller debate, right? Okay, never mind. Miller came in and schooled everybody. Long story. Let's go down to Texas and just take a quick look. Since we're dealing with a bunch of earthquakes here in a line, look at the way the line is going. Wouldn't you say that's a diagonal line going northwest, or, well, northwest to southeast or southeast to northwest? And same with these, just overall. And when you look up to the northwest, the earthquakes that I showed you at this just a few minutes ago, they're certainly all going in that direction. So there's a wave that's going in that direction, and it's dropping off the earthquakes along the way. So here in Texas, if we just go right in at the center of it, this is Midland, Texas. It's very well known for its oil and gas pumping operations. Stanton, Texas, see, we're just north of Midland by a couple miles. This is the home of the Bushes. W. All right, let's go look it up. Again, this matters. The wave is seeking this spot out. Why? When you see what's here, I think you're going to understand. About 100 feet away. How many feet is this? No, more than 100. 500 feet away is a large oil or gas well, most likely gas. They're doing fracking, most likely, in this location. Look at how big this operation is. They collect the water in the ponds, and then they mix the water with toxic chemicals and put it down into the ground. So that's fresh water you see them collecting at the surface to use. They line the ponds to get the fresh water. They make it brine. They put brine in there, salt, and then they take that and inject it down in the ground. Now, all of these little white spots on the ground are different drill points. See how many there are? Just randomly zoom in. I mean, Texas is known for this. We all know about Texas and oil. But the reason this spot is being sought out is look how much it's drilled. Those aren't houses. They're all drill points. It makes Saudi Arabia blush. And it just goes on. Look how many there are. Come on. Come on. I'm not against oil and gas, guys. I really am not. I'm mind blown when I see this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, look at that. Let's look some more, man. Right? Look how it's just insane. So they've drilled it, graph done right there, and that's in the direction of which way they've drilled overall. Like if you look at the overall oil patch that they've tapped into here, that's the overall direction of it. Even though many of the spots that are drilled at the surface are just tic-tac-toed across the whole surface, that the general deposit, there we go, is going northwest to southeast. You can see it, and that is on this. The center edge interior of the craton as it comes down and goes back in. They are literally drilling it out from up here, down and around, back up here, and from up here, down and around to up here. You can see the interior edge of the craton here. It's a bulge. It looks like a river. This looks like a river through Texas that goes up through Dallas, Fort Worth, but that's actually 1,000-foot rise from, we go from 500 feet here, relatively 500 feet above sea, to 1,500 feet here. 500 to 15, 500 to 15, 500 to 15. And so this is a large bulge in the edge of the craton. Now, on the inside edge of the craton, that's where the deformed meets the interior. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time, about a seismic wave going down to here. And right now it's reflecting back into itself. And so I think it's going to go over and reflect into itself on the purple portion of the craton diagram and reflect back into Southern California with a 5.5 to 5.9. Also, here, the wave should try to go into the New Madrid seismic zone. Now, this is my neighborhood. This is where I'm from. I'm from St. Louis. You guys know this. And we still live here in St. Louis. Okay. So it really matters to me when we get a time where I see a wave trapped in the plate and it's not going across the plate like we would expect. So normally every week, let me just show it to you one more time, drive it into your mind that normally every week, if we get a 5 on the West Coast, we tend to see a 4 down in Texas, and then something like a 4 or a upper 3 and a little outbreak up in Northeast Canada, up by Maine. And that's normal. We would normally see that. It bypasses the New Madrid seismic zone, tries to go around the edge of the plate, and it does. The seismic wave does normally. And that's what we're normally dealing with every week. This week, it's not, at least hasn't so far. And we haven't seen any activity on the East Coast at all. Instead, it looks like it's reflecting into itself here in Texas. Hence, it's seeking out the drill points, the volcanoes, all the weak points it can find down here. Well, one step over to the east is the New Madrid seismic zone. And we don't normally have much activity here, just a few small earthquakes. See, there's a 2 there. That's normal. But I'm going to expect this to flare up 4.0 level or greater in the next 7 days. As Southern California moves, we would also expect to see, I've seen this before, we've all seen this before. If you've paid attention on my stream, when Southern California starts to move, we tend to see New Madrid and also the southern portion of the craton move down in Mississippi and Alabama. Now, Mississippi and Alabama, right here, is drilled just like I showed you in Texas. And Arkansas is drilled just like I showed you in Texas. So these two spots on the folds and the bend and the edge of the craton are drilled just outside of the New Madrid, just west-southwest of the New Madrid in Arkansas, all drilled, and all down here on the U-shaped bend of the plate down here in Mississippi and Alabama. So I have to warn the center of this area, which is New Madrid itself, for a potential break that could go up into the 4 range, and it would be the first 4 there in over a year or more. And it's enough to cause damage. 4s are enough to cause damage. Knock down a chimney, take facade off a house if it's brick facade, knock things off shelves if it's a shallow earthquake. Because of the area, the river basin focuses the wave if it's shallow, and you can get significant damage on a 4, where a 4 out in California or a more rocky area might just be a sudden, feels like a blast almost going through your area. This would be a long wobbling that might happen with a 4 or greater on the New Madrid. And remember, I'm trying to get it within a magnitude. So if a 5 hits, man, that would be a big deal. So I think it's going to be 4. It's going to be 5 in California, 4 going across the plate on the New Madrid. And then down here, down in Mississippi, Alabama, I don't know really what to warn you for, because the last time we were looking for anything, instead we got it out here in the ocean over to the east of South Carolina. I warned you guys for 4.5 or something, and instead of 4.5 struck out here in the ocean. They said it was a Navy test. That happened at least 3 times. I warned for an earthquake to strike down here at the Mississippi, Alabama area as the plate is shifting, and a 4 or something like that hits, but it hits out here off the coast, and they call it a Navy test. It's happened 3 times, guys. Enough to where my viewers started joking that I had some kind of secret schedule list of when they're going to be testing Navy ships. I'm not joking. People came up with that as an explanation. And I'm like, no, I don't. This is getting weird, right? Like, are they changing the earthquake to be a Navy test to get it out of there? I don't. Again, I got accused of knowing Navy test times. I'm like, no, I don't. This is the 3rd time it's happened. So if it happens again, I'm going to get really suspicious that they are changing earthquakes to hide them or something. Anyway, they would never do that. But up on the Northeast, really hard to hide, mystery booms and rumbles. We have to watch out in the Northeast now for the craton to shift and for there to be booms, rumbles, explosions, methane explosions, bursts to come out of the shorelines of rivers and along beaches. And then we also have to watch for the potential of actual earthquake activity. But I would start to think that it's going to be mystery booms and rumbles like we would normally see when the craton shifts. Then in the far northeast, Canada, Quebec, we watch for a 4.0 earthquake, just like the new Madrid. And that's all this week. In the Pacific Northwest, we have to get this one out of the way as well. So what happened to the axial seamount? I know there was all the stories about there's going to be an eruption. And now I have to just drive this point home. About 10 years ago, the axial seamount erupted just like it's going to erupt in the next few days, weeks, months, whatever. And when it erupted 10 years ago, there were 10,000 or more small earthquakes that accompany the eruption, and those small earthquakes developed as the eruption developed. And then the plate boundary shifted around the volcano out here at the zigzag-shaped fracture zone out here. Let's go out to Google Earth and just take a quick look at it, show you what I'm talking about. Here, this is the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And in the middle northwest segment of it is here, the coaxial and axial seamount. And this is the volcano undersea. How deep are we? 5,000 feet down? And it puts off lava flows. And it's erupted so many times. Look at this. These are all volcanic eruption points. You see it. Okay. So we're talking about a lot of volcanic eruption going on out there in the ocean all the time. Thousands and thousands and thousands of eruption points plus the actual main axial seamount. In the past, it went up to 5.9 magnitude-wise on the plate boundary just south as the eruption was taking place or getting ready to take place. Hold on 1 second. Not going to edit that out. Just had a little coughing session. You got to remember, I haven't talked in months in a long update like this. So, to sum it all up, we watch for 5.0 plus level activity plus hundreds, if not more, earthquakes to get reported out there, out off the coast. Man, I almost just coughed in your ear as I was talking. Central America, South America. This is where the focus should be over the next week, as both sides of South America have moved. Again, Venezuela, Colombia border region, and down at Chile. Look at it. It's like two targets there on South America. You see where the rings overlap? A third earthquake should strike in between these two sets of earthquakes, but we don't just draw a straight line between the two quakes. Let me make sure you can hear this. Let me make sure I unmuted myself. So we go around the outside bends of the plate in South America. Let's do this, and this will wrap up the update. So we have an earthquake up here on the plate boundary between Colombia and Venezuela, and down here along the coast of Chile. So between the two, there's this red line. Do you see it? Between down here, going around to up here. So what would you say the halfway point is between right there and up here if we go around that bend? It's Peru, isn't it? So we would watch Peru for a new break to take place that's bigger than the two earthquakes combined. And if we take a 6.4 and we add it to another 6.4, we get 6.58. So a 6.4 plus another 6 just takes it up by a point. Remember what I told you, that one earthquake equals 2 equals 3 equals 4. If you add them together, you just add the points together. Simple addition. So we go for 6.5 to strike at the halfway point between these two, or greater, and I'm trying to get it within a magnitude. So it could go up. I could be wrong, and it could be higher, in which case it would be a 7.5. It would be huge, and we hope that doesn't happen. But you see where the rings overlap. They overlap here on the plate boundary, and there's a volcano there to top it all off. What volcano is there? Let's go take a look. Let's just compare. So we're right here in South Peru. I don't know the name of the volcano off the top of my head. Wow, okay. Ubinus. Ubinus. Ubinas volcano, that's the one that is known for erupting regularly. So there's a volcano there that we pay attention to, and it's been on the list many times in the past. That's why I have a letter V there to show us where it is to begin with. So we have to, I don't forecast volcanic eruptions. I'm just saying where the volcano is right along on just to the east of the plate boundary we're watching. So we watch here. We warn it for 200 miles out from here. That could go on land or out in the ocean. If it goes out in the ocean, like I said, it becomes a statistic and nobody really cares. If it strikes on land, that's when people can feel it and we can have problems. If we go any bigger on magnitudes out in the ocean, then it could become a problem with tidal waves, tsunamis, if you want to call them that. And there we go. We don't worry for that now. If a large earthquake hits that's bigger than what I'm looking for, of course, I'll jump back on at a moment's notice and we'll update the forecast as necessary too if I see anything develop that looks different or out of the ordinary that doesn't normally happen. You got to keep track of the solar activity. There's several solar channels. Stephen Burns channel, really good guy, nice guy. He's got good vibes, man. Maybe it's the Schumann resonance. I don't know. Maybe that's why I had a headache yesterday. Hope you're having a good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening. I am here to do a live update. Yes, it's been a long time, but I still got it in me, apparently. Been talking for an hour. I'm going to record this and put it on YouTube for everybody to watch back and to see the warnings, see how they develop out over the next 7 days. So 5 days, 7 days, those are pretty much the warning times we're talking about. We're going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into Saturday. And then by Sunday, I'll be back on. We'll know where we stand on this. Again, I got on 3 days ago and told all my viewers, if you were live on Twitch with me, you knew to watch for us to go to the next step up. We had come up out of fives, and now we're back at mid-range sixes. I think we're getting ready to go the next step up from there. And let's hope I'm wrong and have to come back and eat crow. But the odds of us going back down after a deep 5.9 and a bunch of other activity. I mean, what is this? We're looking for a 6.9 in the West Pacific. We're looking for sixes to go up to Japan. We're looking for 5.9s to go across the Mid East and Asia. We're looking for mid-range fives to near six to strike in Greece. We're looking for five to strike in Romania. I didn't even mention Iceland. I didn't talk about the volcanoes in Italy. Okay, we're not going to talk about the volcano. Enough people are covering Campi Flegrei and Santorini volcano in Greece that I don't think I need to talk about it. Again, I don't forecast volcanic eruptions, so I don't think I could be any help at this point with anybody. Let me remind everyone, you need to be prepared for things. And just in general, have a plan and be prepared. Being prepared takes away some of the fear of unknown events. So in this case, we're talking earthquakes. I tell people to be prepared for earthquakes. Now, what can you do to be prepared? Well, you can have an emergency kit and don't pack it away at the bottom of a closet or something. You need to have it somewhat readily available so you can get to it, or other people in your household. So make sure there's no dangerous items in it, but you do need a change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, that kind of stuff for sure. And then food and water, you probably would want a supply of it. I don't know if the past several years of lockdown with all that and maybe taught you a lesson about being stocked up on food and water. That's something that you should take care of just for yourself in general. But for earthquakes, it's water and high energy fruit bars or granola bars, that kind of stuff. You're not going to be cooking a steak in an earthquake zone. Or if you are, you got problems or you're doing real well. Unless you want to attract a lot of attention from people who might ask you for it, you might want to have prepackaged foods that last a long time in your emergency kit. And then for long term stuff, that's on you guys. For earthquakes, it's going to be a few days. You would want to have a preparation plan and then also a way to stay in contact with people or a way to charge your devices. So power is going to be a problem after an earthquake. You want to have that solution taken care of. Food, water, power, change of clothes, set of shoes, seasonal specific. I'm just telling you guys ideas that you probably should already know. The one that everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's a good one. And it's something that doesn't cost anything, which is just a set of shoes by the side of your bed or wherever you sleep. Because if an earthquake hits in the middle of the night, or if a fire happens, or if severe weather hits, or if there's a bump in the night outside, you probably are going to want a pair of hard bottom something to put on your feet. And if it's an earthquake, there could be broken things on the floor, and you might not have power. You might not be able to see what's broken on the floor. You don't want to step on broken glass. You could have an easily solved problem by just putting a set of shoes or slippers by the side of your bed. Could save your life. For real, something that small. But the point is being prepared. Now, the being scared part, we can remove the being scared part on earthquakes. They're not random. They are caused by a greater wave that unfortunately am the discoverer of. That there's a seismic wave of some kind that's passing from region to region, from plate to plate, and it's coming up where the deep earthquakes are. And then it spreads out around the planet, and it drops off the earthquakes all the way around the planet, trying to equalize to the opposite side of the planet to our letter X's, which are really just termination points for the wave to try to escape to on the opposite side. That's a significant step to take it from earthquakes thinking they're random to actually there's a pattern to them and they're flowing in like a wave in a river. And then we can watch it go from region to region to region, and we can wait for it like an arrival of a train or a flood. You can watch it come your way like the weather. And that removes the fear aspect. And that then replaces the fear with vigilance. Watching it go from region to region. When you watch the fours in the United States, take a step up to fives, and then you watch between the fives, a new greater earthquake strikes, and you're in between those fives, and you knew to watch in Southern California, it takes away some of the fear and replaces it with vigilance. Same for in the New Madrid seismic zone. Nobody's going to move out on a 4 or a 5, but it's good to know that it's coming, just like it's good to know a wind storm is coming or a hurricane is coming to a general region. Now, if it was a huge earthquake, I would be issuing major warnings. Right now, it looks like I think we're going to be in the 5 range. So we're flirting with large earthquake level. I'm kind of taking a bet or a gamble that the plate's going to absorb some of that energy, and it's not going to be a mid-range 6 like down in South America, up here in the United States. Another way they look at it, the alarmist me back when I first started online, that I'd be like, wow, okay, we've got these two. Well, there should be a third one, and it'll probably be right up here, equidistantly spaced, somewhere in the maybe Gulf of California, 6.3 will strike. We'll have 3 6.3s. That's me when I first started, right? But I've now learned over the course of 10 years of observing that when a plate absorbs some of this energy, it does absorb it, and then we get a break there, and it does reduce somewhat the amount, usually. Okay, like listen to me geeking out. It's been so long. Missed you guys. Where have I been? Oh man, we had all kinds of stuff going on around here, and I actually had to shift the office to a new spot. And now I'm like way above where I was, and there's all kinds of changes here. So it's really, really crazy, but it's good. It's good. It's a good change from what I was doing. And I did have some stuff in my personal life we had to take care of as well. My sister was in a major debilitating car wreck, and she fractured her collarbone and clavicle, or damaged her clavicle, fractured her collarbone, 7 different places. She's laid up for weeks out in Colorado, out in Denver. It's just a mess. So it's just been crazy. Please pray for my sister, Tia. My sister's name is Tia. She's not my aunt. Okay, all right. Much love for all of you guys sticking with me. I'm going to end this recording by telling you I'll be back. Peace out, guys.